Adam Whitty. Welcome back to another episode of Build Your Authority. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Joe. How are you?
I'm awesome. It's funny. We've been doing this for a couple seasons now, and our guest today is someone that you've been really actively trying to get down to Charleston, have on the podcast. I keep hearing this name, Scott Manning, Scott Manning, Scott Manning. First, I'm like, oh, one of the Manning brothers? I didn't know they had a Manning brother called Scott, but no relation to the famous Eli and Peyton. Tell me how you were introduced to the world of Scott Manning.
Yeah, so Scott is a hard guy to wrangle. So this is a treat for us today. He is like the sensei. He is the wisdom pouring out of his mouth, and his head is incredible. One of the smartest guys I've ever known. Scott and I met. This is going to date us, Joe. Probably 16 or 17 years ago. At the time, we were both following a marketing legend named Dan Kennedy, who you know, and we were at a Dan Kennedy conference, and we ended up sitting next to each other and just started talking, and we hit it off. And over the last 17 years, 18 years now, that friendship has grown. We jokingly say that we're brothers from another mother, and he's one of the wisest men I know.
Awesome. Well, let's get going. Scott Manning, welcome to Build Your Authority.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for that. I'm glad I didn't have to do that special introduction you guys have mastered. It would have taken me a lot of practice. But I will say that, you know what I love about introductions, you can always make them up yourselves, but I didn't write that one. So that's coming from Adam's heart. So that means the world to me because, when I think about advice, when I think about authority, when I think about somebody that walks the walk and lives and operates the enterprise with principles, I think of Adam Whitty. So I'm honestly humbled to be here and with the authority company on authority. What a gift for me. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. And Scott, I want to kind of start by sort of tying in your background to the idea of building authority, because one of the things that's we talk about a lot on the show is like the discipline needed to be an authority. It's like you really have to know what you're doing, and that's why there's companies like ours that exist to help people find their way to build their authority. And your experience as a martial arts instructor, I believe, that immediately makes me jump to the idea of discipline and the importance of discipline. Tell me how that's played a role in your career from, starting there to building your authority in a field where it's hard to stand out, but you've somehow done it.
Well, thank you, Joe. So, I guess for the sake of time, so the first thing that's interesting, I started martial arts when I was 5. But at 15, I started my own martial arts school. Eventually, over the next 6 to 8 years, I had multiple locations and, generally still a teenager or a young adult. And I always say none of that's to impress anybody. It'd be impressive if I still had it, but it's not so impressive maybe in this way. But I learned street smart entrepreneurship at the beginning. But you are right. I attribute everything in my life back to discipline, and then also the other principle of martial arts really is self-confidence. It's belief in oneself. And even though today I'm not teaching kicks and punches and self-defense physically, I would say I'm absolutely teaching self-defense mentally, but I'm really teaching still the same self-confidence, belief in you, and the discipline to carry it out. And I think that's really what all entrepreneurs, have to have. And I consider that is, what leadership is about to me, is helping everybody I encounter think bigger and be better so that they can pursue and actually achieve their dreams.
Scott, I want to key on one thing that you said. When it comes to building authority, I think there's a misconception. A lot of people feel like, well, gee, I'm not going to intentionally build my authority unless I have a big ego. And I don't have an ego, so this doesn't make sense for me. I don't need to do this. And I really don't think ego is a part of the equation, but there is a prerequisite to building your authority that we rarely talk about, and that is confidence. That if you don't have confidence in your own knowledge, in your own expertise, and if you don't have confidence in yourself that what you share with others can help them, then number one, you never will be an authority, and number two, you shouldn't even pursue this path. I've seen that come up time and time again. And when I see you working with CEOs and entrepreneurs and leaders, you have this ability to help them find the confidence in themselves that they didn't know that they had, but you were effective at bringing it out in them.
Well, yeah, look, thank you, Adam. That's a great compliment. And I mean, first, just to reinforce, I have always believed, and early on, again, confidence is kind of the thing you teach, but is that money moves to confidence, influence moves to confidence, followers, sales, every aspect. If you're not confident in your vision, nobody's going to support you in achieving that vision. So as a CEO or as a leader, entrepreneur, and then even down into sales. So, I think it's a vital lesson. It's probably an underlying part of it. And to be clear, there's a difference between humility and insecurity. And so most of the time, people who don't have a healthy ego, it's just a cop out of an excuse as to why they're holding back and suppressing their own potential, more of a self sabotage, if you will. Anybody that's got something great to say. And by the way, the other kind of unhealthy ego, you'll be found out fast, lose friends quickly. But at the end of the day, there's a healthy understanding. If you are not your own biggest promoter, if you're not going to work on your authority, if you're not doing something to differentiate yourself and give people the reason why, okay, they should be following you, giving you money, buying your product, joining your team, then what else is there? So I think it's actually perhaps the greatest responsibility of any leader, CEO, entrepreneur, insert whatever, for athlete, coach, whatever, is that the people under you have to have confidence in you, and therefore you have to constantly be growing your confidence muscles if you're going to stay ahead of that curve.
I love that. And Adam, I feel like we're brothers from different mothers because I was going to pull on that confidence thread too. Because Scott, we talked about this a lot with a lot of folks we work with. Is they're almost timid to share their knowledge, and and folks that we work with will be like, "Hey, did you post that thing?" And they're like, "Yeah, I don't know. I felt like if I did it, it would come across as cocky." And so, let's talk about that fine line, though. And you kind of hinted about it there, Scott. Cocky and confidence. Get into that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I guess I would dive into that in a couple ways. So first and foremost, sort of a theme in my life is bold, not bashful. And I'm like a super subtle guy. Like I don't want to stand on stage, speak to lots of people. I set it up the way I want it done. And where I'm more successful, not necessarily more comfortable, because I think discomfort is key. And they say no growth comes from being comfortable anyhow. You're always going outside your comfort zone. But if bold, not bashful, because if you're not going to, somebody else will. And also, I got lots of cliches, so easy to remember. But I say losers live in limbo. And I think if you're not bold, okay, you're going to be stuck in whatever, ponderment, in indecision. And so it's just a critical piece. I think cocky people are maybe doing it for the wrong reason. There's always going to be a little bit of arrogance that comes with knowing you're the best, but backing it up, and you're the best because of what you've done behind the scenes, what you've built in the foundation. And it's, I don't want to get into morality and all that, but it's really important that people who have a vision, actually, excuse me, Adam and I, one of the things for the authority company we talked about a couple of years ago was, if your goals are worthy enough, then you must not delay. And I would say the same deal. If you have a vision, if you're going to make an impact on other people, you better not be sitting on your ass. Like you got to go. And I also believe strongly in guilt-free success. It is nothing but a security blanket. If somebody says, "Oh, I wonder what somebody's going to think," or "I shouldn't post that," or "I'm going to come across the wrong way," those people are going to get passed up by somebody who has more conviction in their mission. And that's just the bottom line.
Joe, we got to talk about this a little bit more because it's actually so important. The title of our podcast is Build Your Authority. And if you want to build a team or an organization of significance, the people that work with you, work around you, work for you have to have confidence in you, right? So if you're running a large organization, your team members and teammates have to have confidence in you. They have to enthusiastically want to be a part of an organization that you're leading. Your clients and customers, if they don't have confidence in you, then why should they be doing business with your company? If you want to be a regular guest on TV or radio as a source, the media has to have confidence in you. And if you are not strategically and systematically and constantly working to build your authority, you're not giving these people reasons to have confidence in you, and you are thwarting the growth and the success of your organization. So I just want to bring that up because in the many episodes that we've recorded, I don't think I've had someone as beautifully and as eloquently as Scott say what he just said, and it's a really important point that should be repeated.
Can I jump on three things real quick? I thanks Adam. First of all, if you're listening to this podcast, it's the best one out there. You're very smart to do it because it is 100%, if not consciously, subconsciously building your authority and your confidence muscles. But one of the things, Adam, that you've been famous for doing, and you've helped so many people bottle up their authority, and you let the book do the talking. And so one of the most powerful ways, whether you are, confident or a little bit less than, by putting your message and your philosophy and your success and your life story in something, in a modality, which I would consider the foundation of all authority, which would be having a book. That is a great way. So even somebody that maybe is a little bit antisocial like me, well, I have a lot of things out there telling a story for me. And then the other thing I would say, second thing is, remember that Adam talks a lot about the flywheel, sort of maybe behind the scenes, and this is a principle of business. But once you get authority established, first of all, you have to have clarity over what are you the authority of. Who are you for? All those normal business things you would think about. And some people are thinking, "Oh, I want authority to everybody." Well, you're going to be the authority to nobody. And you're the authority specifically about something for someone. And that's a really important key. And then that should be empowering to yourself as it is, because you don't have to be better than everybody. It's going to be better than whatever's inside of this box that you're the master of the domain with. But once you have that foundation built, then authority is it's enhancement, right? It's like lifting weights. Well, it takes a lot to get in shape, but once you are, you're just keeping that edge. And so if you're doing the right things, listening to these guys, to Joe and Adam, you have built authority, and then you just keep it going. That becomes the difference maker, the slight edge, that really is the game changer. And I mean, I guess I'll stop there. But it is like muscles. You got to keep building them. And you should be proud of what you stand for. For heaven's sake, most people can find what you do somewhere else in their mind, in a consumer's mind, in a business's or competitor's mind. What you do, they can find somewhere else. Now, they probably can't actually, but in their mind, they think so. But what they can't find anywhere else is you. And so it's not what you do, but it's who you are. Even if we're talking about a company as an entity, or we're talking about a leader as a CEO, or we're talking about somebody in your organization that's supposed to represent your authority, that's the real difference maker. And once you get that, it changes the game. And quite frankly, you start playing a different game that there ain't no competition, and you're designing your success on your own terms.
Joe, one of the things I want Scott to talk about, I've said before on this show, the riches are in the niches. And, Scott just mentioned that, hey, to build authority, you've got to know what you're the authority on and who you are the authority for. Because being an authority on everything to everybody is impossible. I think Scott's done a brilliant job at picking his niche, building his authority brand within this very narrow community. And I'm hoping we could get him to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, Scott, you cut your teeth helping dentists, and dentists become entrepreneurs, right? And so, first of all, I guess, going back to Adam's point about riches and niches, why dentists? Because you've got great teeth and you're a martial artist, MBA, but why did you feel like that was a niche to start with?
Well, you guys, thank you so much. You're making me reminisce, I suppose. But, I actually, I'm not going to elaborate on the story for the sake of time, but it's interesting because there was actually a crossroads where I chose, instead of one thing another, which I suppose everybody in their life has. And what really happened, just to come to your question, is I began with the end in mind. One of the influential books in my life, aside from some others, was The 7 Habits, probably for most people. And I always thought about, how do I want to work, and what do I want to do for the money? And what does this thing look like if it's fully baked? And so there was some serendipitous things that occurred as well, but I chose dentistry because they are, what I do, they're entrepreneurial. They're basically free from regulation. They're small and intimate comparatively to other opportunities. So there's instant decision maker. There's a team that can be influenced for change versus, let's say, something maybe bigger. And for me, it's sort of, salt of the earth, mom and pop, like they're still working with humans. Like it's going to be maybe never in at least a while before a patient's going to walk in and meet a robot and let them go to work on their mouth. So like I'm a human person. So I believe in people. I really, I will say, decisively chose or deliberately chose something that met with sort of my core principles of entrepreneurship, small business America, but highly profitable and incredibly leverageable, which makes me worth more to them. So that's kind of the answer. But I just to elaborate too on Adam's point, I think everybody talks about niches. I think so many times people think of industry, or they may think of sort of a modality, but there's so many layers to niches, and most industries are large. And so, I mean, I can use dentistry as an example, although it's irrelevant to the industry. So there's 160,000, let's say, dentists, right? But so, I do, I would say, reasonably well by focusing the target down to private practice, independent, generally speaking, more of a smaller organization, which is still the majority, but my target is like not 1%, it's like 0.1%. And so all the marketing, all the messaging, all the authority building can be, this is who I'm for and this is who I'm not for. This is what we're about, this is what we're not about. And even in one niche, there's so many sub niches. But if I'm selling forklift attachments, if I'm selling, speaking on a stage to motivate, massive Fortune 500 companies, if I'm a financial advisor, if I'm, in a venture fund, or I am created a family legacy, like whatever it is, you're picking who is important to hear your message. And that should be empowering by itself because you are the authority on you first and foremost. And then if you do it right, whatever you've created, it's like a magnet. People are looking for that. They're looking for this as long as you're putting it out there. And I think, again, I go back to bold, not bashful. If your messaging of what your company is about, isn't boldly identifying the people you want to hear it, the ones you like to hear it will miss it completely, and you'll attract a whole lot of other people that you'd rather not have. And then you're going to be wasting your time and your resources. So picking the niche is important, but I wouldn't pick it randomly. I'd pick it very specifically as to, what's the implication of this niche, and does it align with other principles and objectives that you're trying to achieve?
Joe, this reminds me, again, this is such a foundational principle of building authority, is this idea of niching your authority. And this reminds me, early in my career, we had an author, and his name was Jim Ziegler, and he was a consultant to automotive dealers. He had spent his entire life in the automotive industry. And I called it the Jim Ziegler rule. But he once said to me, Adam, outside in the world, nobody knows who I am. I can go to a restaurant and nobody's going to ask me for an autograph. But when I set foot on the convention floor of the National Automotive Dealers Association, he said, I'm a rock star. He said, I have a line of people that want to come up and talk to me. And at a very, very early age, he helped me understand the importance of niching. And it's really, being famous, for lack of a better term, to the people that have the capacity to do business with you. being famous to the people that can become your clients, being famous to people that don't have the ability to be a customer of yours, at least in the business world, it's a pointless exercise, right? And so I think Scott just brings that home. And again, foundational principles to build your authority. It can't be mentioned enough. But I want to pivot now, Scott. One of the things that you have done, I think, brilliantly in building your authority is you created a system, you created a methodology, and you call it your practice profit blueprints. And so you created this system that you have highly marketed to your target audience. And of course, by creating this system and this process, you now have a way to help your clients succeed by making them go through this system, this process, this methodology. And you're not having to reinvent the wheel with every client your business serves. So I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about your practice profit blueprints and speak to the reason that this is so important when it comes to building authority and scaling your authority.
Well, yeah, thank you, Adam. Boy, that's a deep question there. So I would start with say, first of all, you can't exclusively build your own authority. You got to get help. You got to get help from experts like these fine gentlemen on the screen. And the reason is because you're operating everything else. And so you're operating a business. Maybe you're facing with customers, or maybe you're managing your team, or you're just working with the C-suite. But you got a lot of things pulling you. And authority is a full-time commitment if you're going to do it right, because you have to be omnipresent to your constituency, to the place you need to be known. So that to me is what the authority company does, and why you should be doing it too. I want to say, Adam, the what you're explaining, the first principle that I started with was, I call it obvious differentiation. I mean, I'm sure it's not unique to me, the term, but the famous book Trout, I think it was, but it talks about differentiation. But I say obvious, like it's like if they don't know you're different until they get to you, like it's kind of too late. And so, how can you be obviously different? So, one of my methods was to begin with, what is everybody else saying in my said niche, and then going heads and tails on everyone, not some of them, all of them. How could I be the contrarian to everything? And so for mine, it was like, okay, uh, you need a lot of volume in order to do well and make money. You got to max out capacity. Mine was the opposite. Like, well, actually, if you do it right, you get the right ones, you don't need so many. And therefore, you can have more time freedom and you can do a lot less, but still make more in terms of profit being the point. And again, in any industry, but in my industry, it was a lot of things are talking about bigger is better. What's the big top line number? Or how many people do you have? Or, people using all these weird ideas around, and again, how many new customers, size. It's all about size. So I changed the game to say, well, actually it's about, what's your life like? And I would view success as how many hours out versus in. We've heard the term work on the business versus in the business. I would assume most people here are doing on the business. They're leaders or executives, or they're either CEOs or entrepreneurs. But maybe some are still very much in the business. But I'm talking about not just on and in. I'm talking about in versus out, meaning building your life, building your passive income, building your future wealth, building yourself, and a family. Like all the things, like to me, that's success. And so I'm attracting people who believe those same principles, and I'm changing the idea of what the normal definition that is smacked into people's heads from the industry as a whole, down into something completely different. And I start there because my practice profit blueprints are my blueprint, which I know some other people using that approach too. Any industry can use blueprint, period, in the story. And the point of a blueprint is what it also isn't, which it isn't a cookie cutter format. It isn't a one size fits all thing. So there again, most industries are shouting the newest trend. They're shouting how to do this or how to do that. And they're telling everybody the same thing. And so I'm saying, well, actually, maybe not. And first, maybe we should think about what's your end result? What are your goals and objectives? Why are you building this company in the first place? In my case of practice. And let's first understand before we do anything, what's your definition of success? Then taking the blueprint, the system, okay, and then applying that to this gives them a custom answer, which means a custom sales pitch, which means that now they're buying what they wanted versus what you were trying to sell them. And most people never thought through that because business owners are trained to find bright, shiny objects. They're trained to be buyers and consumers, even though maybe it's B2B. And so I'm stopping everything and saying, wait. Before we do that, okay, I know you want to buy, give me money, it's great, but here's the thing. Okay, we first need to decide what's a victory for you because I care that much. And so if I could sell you something, but here's the good news. You can add a zero to what you sell if you're giving them something that's actually going to deliver on the result that they desire. And so it's like people are short-minded thinking about the quick cash versus a long-term relationship and really on the front end. So then the system is simple. I call it blueprint, but it's really just consultative or diagnostic selling, where the prospect, the lead, the customer, the buyer is basically building their own plan. The system is, I say the system is principled, but the solution is customized. And so everybody going through the same approach, but they're making it their own along the way. And in addition to the fact that I think that that's smart and it has integrity, it's going to be way more effective in work because while there are a lot of constants, it's the variables that sabotage the outcome. And so I'm controlling the variables on the front end through the blueprint process. And one, knowing what they are, two, making them, sort of not matter, not get in the way, but yet in the prospect's mind, customizing to those variables so that they feel that it's literally been built for them. And in a sense, it has. So what I do is information first happens to be a book. Okay, so if everybody, the system is readers are leaders. I learned that from Adam. So then once they read, and I don't want somebody who's not going to read the book, first of all, because it's going to be a shitty customer. Okay, so then they read the book, then they go into an assessment phase, filling out some stuff, telling me more about them. And then me, because of the kind of business I'm in, I'm working directly with these people. So then after they go through a couple, gatekeepers and betters, I'm talking with them to understand truly, are we a good match? I call it the crystal ball. I want them to be able to articulate what the crystal ball is. And then what I'm going to do is say, great, then here's how we build that crystal ball for you, meaning future outcome. And then the next step is we sit down and build it out. That's the blueprint. And then from there, obviously the sales pitch is the implementation to bring that to life. So I don't know if that's what you wanted in terms of system, but the other thing I would say is in every industry, there are like pillars that exist, whether you're going to consumer or you're going to business. They're like the things. So it might be, how do you get a customer? It might be, what is the customer's mentality? How are they used to buying? It might be, where would they particularly find you? In what media or modality? And then you have some level of customizing it, but around principles, around constructs. And again, every business is going to be different in terms of the specifics, but the consultative approach of understanding more first before you're just pitching solution. And then ultimately, I would also say part of the blueprint process is because we've done all this work on the front end, we've been able to manage expectations, and we've been able to not just be the authority to get them, we've been the authority along the way. So now you have a much more compliant customer, and a compliant customer gets results. Okay, and so that is making them a participant in the process and also own the responsibility of their own success. No matter what business you're in, no matter what industry, no matter what you're doing, you want your customer taking on some onus of responsibility of outcome. Otherwise, you're just an order taker. Otherwise, you're just a service provider. Otherwise, you are not an authority. So you can have authority company do a hell of a job on the front end, but boy, you better do a great job in the middle too of maintaining authoritative positioning. Otherwise, you're just going to have a lot of problem customers on the back.
So, Scott, talk for a minute about differentiation. So one of the things that you do so well is you help your doctors stand out from their peers and really appear to their patients as larger than life. Dentistry, like many industries, could be considered a commodity, right? If I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, and I go to Google and say, I need a dentist near me, there's probably 10, 15, 20 options. And if they all look the same, I'm probably going to go to the one that maybe is closest to where I live or to where I work. But you have done such an effective job at helping your doctors appear larger than life, become larger than life, be a category of one, as I like to say. Explain how you've done that and explain how that directly ties to authority.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Adam. That's, I'll just say, let's remember, if you're a speaker, you're a consultant, you're a financial advisor, you're a software developer, you have a subscription-based business, you're an online marketer, you are a brick and mortar something or rather, you're selling B2B or B2C, like whatever it is, okay, the lesson in Adam's point is that you're taking the person who is your customer, your buyer, and if you do it right, you're helping them become better to the next tier down. Because ultimately, the trickle down effect is where you're going to get, maybe problematic. So we are, yes, helping make these doctors authorities in this regard. And I would say every business, for the most part, not every business, but almost could be a commodity unless they're doing full differentiation. Differentiation is not just in what the final delivery is, it's also the experience. So I would start by saying we are not going to work on making the doctors authorities on dentistry. We're making them authorities on what we call complete health. So we changed vocabulary. First, incredible point. Change vocabulary so that you cannot compare the same concepts. And then secondly, we educate. We say the best patient is the educated patient, not before they got to us, but while they're with us, meaning that we want to be the indoctrination. Actually, this is a great example, but in every industry, people want these buyers that are ready to go. Give me the ready to go buyers. I want the best customers for me. So yeah, who doesn't? The problem is, especially like say in dentistry, your practice is here. People are going to come to you. They could come from far away and fly on airplanes, but generally you're where you're at. So you want different people you can move. Otherwise, you have to be in the build better customers business. I am in the build people business. That's what I'm in the business of. But basically, we have every single practice in the build better patients business, from the first point of contact to all the way through. What is the secret to knowing this? Well, did they buy everything we had to offer? Everything we could do to make an impact on their life, did they buy it all? And then did they bring a friend? If they bought it all and brought a friend, we did a good job. That's what a customer should do. And so we are changing the game, vocabulary, complete health, not dentistry. Number two, it's a relationship experience. We are getting to know the human, not just the mouth. And I'm giving you a dental example. You could use any example. Okay, so this is uh, as a matter of fact, I'll give you another example. So we do a lot of events. So just the other day, my wife was talking to the place where we're going to be going very soon, running these multi-week events with multi-groups coming. And this lady sat down and said, first, before we go into the details of your event, I want to hear about some past events you've had and ones you thought were just amazing and memorable. I also want to know is what does success look like for you? What will your people say at the end of this? So this is an event planning business, not in the dental planning business. Okay, not in healthcare or construction software, anything like. But you could apply the same concept. Apply the same concept. People selling software ask a person a question on the front end. What are you unhappy with? Where is the current software you have today defunct? And what are the most amazing things you'd like to see happen with such and such software today? And so all of this is pre-framing. We're doing this with our patients. The simple fact of asking these questions makes you an authority because people, in order to learn, you have to listen. That's why I say ask questions, listen, and learn. And by doing that, hopefully you actually have, but it makes the person feel the empathetic understanding of them. And that's what leads to influence. All influence is done through empathy. If people feel like you understand them, they're going to listen to what you have to say. That's it, bottom line. Now, and hopefully you do good things with it. And then the other thing I would just say, Adam, boy, we strongly encourage our doctors to have a book because the only true leverageable form of authority Leverageable, meaning it can go one to many, it can last forever, is it telling your story in some form. So we want patients in this case reading about the doctor's, why, not just how and why, okay, but like what made them them? What's the mission behind it? We call it clinical philosophy. Okay, what do we see as success for our patients? If I told you, okay, my goal at this dental practice, let's say, is for you to get completely healthy. Okay, is there any patient going to say no to that? Okay, so the next level is saying what is complete health. So just so we're on the same page before we get started, not after. We don't sell price and procedures. We sell vision of health, and we got that. The other part is easy. So I think it's just really important. Most people are selling the things, right, and instead of outcomes. And nobody buys, what you do. People buy, okay, what you do does. Okay, hopefully that can make some sense.
Yeah, that's great. That's good stuff. And Scott, you hinted earlier about the word commitment. And I think this is important for a lot of people that are about to go on this authority journey. Is just your commitment to it. And you probably have a commitment radar when you probably meet clients. You're like, oh, yeah, this person's really nice to do it. Because we talk about, Adam and I talk about this all the time. Like, don't do it for the sake of doing it. Don't do it because your cousin said it's a good idea. The other day, I wrote something about that years ago. I saw Bruce Springsteen on the Today Show. And as you guys know, rock stars are not early morning people. So he gets up on there at 8 o'clock in the morning. And right before he's about to sing his song, he goes, man, I must really need to sell some records if I'm singing at 8 o'clock in the morning. That's Bruce Springsteen recognizing that his commitment is like, usually I like to sleep until noon, but I'm so committed to my work that I'm going to do something I'm not used to doing, and that's sing rock and roll songs at 8 o'clock in the morning. So, Scott, tell me about that idea about commitment when it comes to getting on this authority journey.
Well, commitment is everything, I would say, right? Because, people can speak things, they can say they want things, they can even take some actions to things, but it's not the actions that ultimately matter. It's the commitment to be successful no matter what. And again, this goes back to if your goals are worthy enough, you're going to do it. One of my favorite models is what my brother created a long time ago for me. I mean, it's a tagline everybody uses, but literally 22 years ago when we first started, he said, "Let's do this," and we said, "What WIT? Whatever it takes." I'm sure there's a lot of other acronyms now, but there wasn't so much thing. It wasn't all the texting and emojis and stuff. But it says whatever it takes, and that has to be commitment. But I think the point you're making, Joe, which is just so masterful, is that you have to get this commitment from the person you're selling to. Okay. And so, yeah, you have to express your commitment. But I tell everybody, and it doesn't matter to me, I don't care if you're a Fortune 500 company or, you're Inc. 5000 list, whatever you are, okay, your company has to have a mantra that, okay, we're not going to work harder than you at your goals. And it's a simple, anything other than that would be stupid. We're going to work real hard on our goals, but we're going to sell to a customer, but only a customer that's fully committed to outcome in so much as we are. And that, by the way, that's sort of an old takeaway selling concept, but it's so important to make an agreement on the front end of success. And I offer bold guarantees because I have to practice what I preach. But anybody that talks about the guarantee, I always say, actually, nope, forget it, because you're a loser already thinking about what happens if you lose. So yes, I have the guarantees, but I only want people that aren't interested in the guarantees and are interested in the outcomes. Okay, so let's start on the right track here, because you're going to win. I'm going to go find somebody else. So whether you do it or not is not going to make a big impact to me. I'll find somebody else. But to you, this is it. Okay. So like go all in on your authority with the only company that delivers it. But you have to believe, okay, and then be willing to do the work. Your example of this, Springsteen up early singing the song. That's it too, right? Like it's like you have to be aligned with your own core principles and not be something you're not. I have to tell you, I know that on this Build Your Authority podcast, we also have some great things happening with Entrepreneur. And if you've ever been interested in Entrepreneur, the magazine or being one, you should be finding your authority maybe in that place too. But one of my favorite articles in Entrepreneur magazine was a year ago. It was about a year ago. There was an article that basically said something around the effects of everything people tell you you should change, you should lessen, you should be different than. Okay, everything that they think about you is wrong. Okay, all those people, they got no clue, first of all. Those are all the things you should double down on. So when you understand your unique abilities, when you understand your superpowers, when you understand the things that rub people the wrong way, oh boy, give those babies a big bear hug because you just found your secret. And so this is getting up and doing a song at 8 in the morning. This is, this is building your authority and being bold, not bashful. This is being omnipresent in the niche, in the space, in the environment, okay, that matters most to you. And I love that Adam said what he did earlier, because I was going to say that too, but he did it better than me. It was like, yeah, I'm a nobody, okay, to people that don't matter, but I'm everybody to the people that do. And it's so specific. But what building your authority will do is it will allow you to create your own ecosystem, okay, to be the king or queen of. Otherwise, you're just floundering around out in the world. Okay, but once you get this authority done properly, you're bringing people in to your world that you're creating, and you're becoming owning an ecosystem, which is way more valuable than just a company, okay, or just a customer. And that's what authority does. It's proliferation. Is really the greatest form of wealth building there is.
Well, Joe, I told you this was going to be good. You did not know it was going to be a marketing seminar, a sales seminar, and a psychology seminar all wrapped into about 40 minutes.
Yeah, no, it was a lot. I mean, and I will say, I think Scott's our favorite Manning. All those other Mannings are just nobodies. Scott, for folks who want to find out more about you, connect with you, where should they start?
Well, I guess in just the light of being an example of everything we talked about today, they could go to dentalsuccesstoday.com. We'll just keep it very simple. I would just say that it's a little rough around the edges, but it gets the job done. There's an example of everything we talked about today, from systematic structure, intake process, authority, obviously, and being an anomaly in the space. So it's just all dentalsuccesstoday.com. It's very simple.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott, for appearing on Build Your Authority.
It's been a pleasure and an honor, and I love listening to the two of you. And I want to just double down and give everybody what set me free in my life. It's very simple. It's called a book, and it set free everything because it could tell the story for me. It could make me the authority in advance of engaging. It really was. So you're at the right place to build your authority. And I hope you go all in on it, because there's nothing that will have a bigger impact in your company, okay, in your ecosystem, in your world, your niche, but ultimately to the longevity of your legacy than building your authority right now.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. Adam, we did it again. Scott Manning, and it's amazing. One thing that's great about you, Adam, is that, and I'm not saying this because you're my boss, but is this ability for you to build your network and continue it. Because I think people on the surface are like, yes, I want to build my network. I want to have a lot of LinkedIn connections. I want to have friends, but meaningful connections. And so you feel, and I feel like, as we've talked over the years, is like how important it is to maintain these connections when it comes to becoming an authority in your field.
Yeah, the final chapter of my book, The Authority Advantage, is about authority and happiness. And I'm convinced that the more authority you have, the happier you become. And when you have authority, it allows you to open more doors and build more quality relationships. And the more quality relationships a person has in their life, the happier they are. Now, I don't know how much authority I had 18 years ago when I met Scott. I probably didn't have much at all. But Scott and I built a friendship, and I have very intentionally continued to invest in that friendship for the last 18 years. And obviously, his friendship and his support of everything we do here at Advantage, it means a lot, but it also makes me a pretty happy guy.
Awesome. Great way to end it. Adam, I will see you next time on Build Your Authority.
Thanks, Joe.